Okay, good day to all wherever you are on our globe, and welcome again to our 15th session of the KM AI course, where we learn what AI is, how AI can serve KM, but the most of all, and that's what we're doing now, trying to understand how KMers can help AI. Before I introduce our special guest today, I want to share with you my thoughts and my understandings that what we saw last week and the week before were the beginning of it, because it's obvious that the way that we help every project, whether if it's an ERP project or a CRM project or any HR other project, we can help also AI. So we can have communities of practice, and we can have a portal, an internet, and bring up some knowledge bases. And that's okay, but we can add much more. And that's why 2 weeks ago, we were introduced to the world of data management again, looking at the terms and the functionality and the roles that we already are familiar with, but with the perspective of AI. The next coming weeks, we will add some layers showing how untypical roles that we wouldn't think that KMers can take are also for KMers, and that they can help much more than anyone else in these as well. So first of all, I hope you are curious. I hope you are waiting. And next week, Art will be speaking about how to map the problems, the opportunities, and the risks to knowledge management projects. And that would be another aspect, another issue, how KMers can help AI. So that's next week, and we will have homework. We will have a pre-task, a task that you will have to prepare to read something. We will send it out today, but that's all for the introduction. And now I am very pleased with our special guest today, Tony Rhem, who is a specialist on KM, a specialist on AI, and John Lewis, who isn't here today, but I read his book, says it's not that you go from novice to expert. Expert is not the highest, level. After you're an expert, you can turn to be a pioneer and a thought leader. So I think that, Tony, we're talking today, not only with an expert, but also with a pioneer, or maybe even with a thought leader on KM and AI. And we are very pleased that you agreed to join us today. And Annie, please.
Okay. Great introduction, Moria. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn it over to Tony so that he can give you some background on, him in this field. He is absolutely a thought leader and a pioneer in this field. And I want him to give you background. And then after we listen to Tony's presentation, we'll go into a question and answer period. And, I'll be interviewing him, but hopefully some of you will come up with some questions as well. And we'll try to feed those into the interview as we go along, okay? So I'm going to introduce or turn it over to Tony Rhem so that he can tell you about his practice out here in this field and his journey through KM and AI.
Okay, what I can do now, I guess, is really share my screen, if that's okay. Let me see if I can do that.
You are co-host. You can do everything.
Oh, well, okay. How about that? Let's switch to. So what are you guys seeing right now?
We see a presentation
mode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as long as it's in presentation mode, we're good. Okay, so just to give you guys just a brief background, I know some of you on this amazing class participation. A little bit about me. I started my consulting company back in 1990. really a consulting practice. And over the years, it evolved, and just to focus on knowledge management and artificial intelligence. So my background is that I started out in AI. I have a master's in artificial intelligence from DePaul University in Chicago. We see that in 1989. So we imagine how AI was back then. Specialized in expert systems, neural network type of technologies. And in 1998, 99, I was introduced to knowledge management. And I just thought knowledge management was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It kind of puts that management wrapper around knowledge, because at the end of the day, AI was all about knowledge, all about understanding knowledge, understanding have a machine that's able to think and to do things. And I said, hey, this knowledge management thing is really going to really take off. So I really focused on knowledge management for, wow, it's been 20 years now. But the last, I think, 8 years or so, I've gotten back into AI with the advent of big data and understanding more machine learning models and understanding where knowledge management really played a role in understanding, at the end of the day, understanding knowledge. So that's how my company kind of evolved to do more consulting, training, and research around KM and AI and all those different disciplines that affect it, right? So also my passion for technology also led me to be an advisor to some emerging tech startups that actually focus on KM and AI tools. And so I'm able to advise them and on best practices and trends and some things on their software and solutions that they need to be aware of and how they can evolve those solutions. I've been fortunate to also be a part of the one of the founding editorial board of the AI and Ethics Journal that's produced by Springer, and also being involved in the AI Policy Exchange to kind of, push the notion of AI ethics. And so I've worked with a number of companies and organizations. Spent 5 years really working with the IBA, International Bar Association, consulting, advising large and small international law firms on technology, specifically AI and KM. So it's all that. The thread of my passion is AI and KM. So I've been doing this for quite some time and trying to push the science along. So as far as my company is concerned, we've done, like I said, a lot of areas and a lot of AI and KM work and training and research, and also in consulting. And you see the industries we consult in, from insurance to healthcare, pharmaceutical, you name it, legal, retail. So we've been able to get involved in that. I think two specific projects that we worked on that really kind of bring this marriage of KM and AI together was one I worked with. We had a research grant and worked with the University of Chicago with on non-small cell lung cancer, looking to design algorithms that can analyze the data to understand where new treatments for non-small cell lung cancer can be found. Find those anomalies, understanding the patterns of the data. And so that project, we worked on that for a number of years to develop some algorithms for specifically non-small cell lung cancer, because cancer is a huge domain in itself, and we narrowed it down for our focus. And also we had the opportunity to work with the JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. They had a project opportunity that we were engaged in that that really focused on the artificial pancreas and improving the algorithm for insulin delivery. And so it uses sensors and information from a person. And so based on different data that the algorithm would leverage, it would dispense insulin and in hopefully a timely fashion, and to keep the patient, insulin stable and prepared on that. So it's kind of automatic distribution. So those are interesting avenues, interesting areas where AI is really making a difference. And at the underlying piece of all of that work was the ideal of what knowledge are we trying to discern from this? What are we trying to get this to do? What are we trying to get this to learn? And so that speaks to what we've been talking about, I guess, if Freyback jumped on, about how KMers can really, that knowledge, that understanding of knowledge management can really help in KM, AI applications. But the overwhelming aspect of what I do is, I think is really important, is AI ethics. Now, I wrote an article for the AI and Ethics Journal, and it was really talking about knowledge management, right? How AI ethics impacts the flow of knowledge within knowledge management. And so, you probably wouldn't really think about that on the surface, the ethical nature of AI. But at the end of the day, if AI is delivering knowledge, it should have an ethical basis of delivery of that knowledge. So in the article, I talked about incorporating AI into the KM application, KM methods. Delivery of that knowledge, what it has to take to have to be ethical delivery of that knowledge, and the issues and really the ethicality of AI within the applications. At the end of the day, I always point out that I believe it's necessary to have the human in the loop, or have people-centered artificial intelligence applications, because if you remove the person from monitoring the application and understanding what knowledge is being transferred from one area to the next, then you run into some unintended issues. And so with the person in the loop, as I say, you will cut down on those situations. So what did I really focus on when I talked about AI ethics and delivery of knowledge? And so some of the examples of what I call AI infused KM, right? One is predicting trending knowledge areas and topics. A system will learn how you work within it, it's really user-centric, personal delivery of knowledge. So it will, over time, the algorithm will learn how you work, and also will be able to deliver those pieces of knowledge that you're looking for, whether it be tangible or access to a person or people who have deeper understanding of that knowledge. You can look at search engines such as, when you go to Amazon and you buy a product and say, well, you may want these other products because it's looking at your buying habits. Even Google will look at what you searched for before and say, hey, you may want to look at these other areas as well. If you have your Google Assistant or Siri or Alexa, it's constantly listening to you, and it will make suggestions as well. It would may call people you may not intend to call because you're mentioning their names or whatever. But it's learning, the algorithms are constantly learning. And so with the AI, with the KM lens on AI, you also will improve content decisions for the machine learning algorithm. What content is going to be addressed and suited for a situation. Also, the targeted knowledge will resonate with knowledge workers, right? What knowledge are you looking for? Getting right to the answer to your question, instead of searching, you pulling up a bunch of stuff, especially within the enterprise, pulling up those levels of knowledge or content that's really there to answer a question. A lot of KM methods when it comes to implementing AI is realized through search engines. And you look at search engines with natural language processing in the back end, excuse me, in the front end for those types of products, and in the back end you get more sophisticated machine learning, cognitive type search capabilities. So a lot of that knowledge management understanding will see itself manifested in search engines. I know also a lot of you guys are familiar with chatbots and robotic process automation or intelligent automation, and how those applications are also leveraging machine learning to actually learn how the bot actually does certain tasks to improve the performance of the bot over time. But at the end of the day, the bot mimics the person actually doing the job and the knowledge that the person has in that job. So it's a thread that will be evident throughout AI when you think about how knowledge is being used and how knowledge is being extracted from the data. So at the end of the day, data, information, and knowledge contributes to the understanding of the algorithms of AI to produce the right knowledge to the right person at the right time. So it's all about that infusion of both the principles of artificial intelligence driven by the methods of knowledge management. That's in my estimation. That's what I've seen over the last several years, and I think this is what this course is all about.
Tony, can you repeat slowly the last message, slowly and loud, so we can all listen and understand again? It was a very important message.
Oh, okay. Now hopefully I can repeat that message. I was saying that data, information, and knowledge together form the basis of what AI can deliver. So, and it takes the special skills of a person with knowledge management acumen to understand the methods that will be contributing to the success of that artificial intelligence, that AI algorithm, to deliver the knowledge that it's intended to deliver. So that was the point I was making. At the end of the day, AI infused KM allows for personalized delivery of knowledge in order to solve a specific issue or question that the user may have. And AI over the course of time will learn how the user works. And so that is why the ethicality of AI, AI ethics is important to in the delivery of knowledge, because we want to make sure that the data that the algorithm is using is ethical, it's cleansed, it's prepared in a way that you can trust the outcome. Because I always say garbage in, garbage out. You got to be able to understand what you're bringing into the algorithm. And so that KM perspective and that lens on the data and the information that produces the knowledge is key to that algorithm success. So that's the bottom line of what I wanted to bring out and bring out in that article. And that article can be accessed through the AI and Ethics Journal. And if anybody want a link to that, you just let me know and I can send it to you, and as well as a copy of this presentation. This is just a very brief presentation. I didn't want to just spend the time just doing this, but get into more of the you guys deeper dive. But I did want to also point out that I've been fortunate enough to write a few books and contribute to a few others. Knowledge Management and Practice is my latest book. It's from 2016, 2017. I'm actually working on the second edition, which is Artificial Intelligence and Knowledge Management and Practice. So it's really updating this to bring to the forefront what I've been talking about briefly today, and what this class is about is about how AI and KM are coming together to to elevate knowledge, the delivery of knowledge, and show examples in different industries where that is happening. So the next edition of the book will actually dive into that. I had the pleasure of working with Jay Leibowitz on his book, contributing a chapter to that on knowledge management measurements, in his book, Knowledge Management and Analytics. So relationships, as you guys know, are just essential for our continuing to learn and grow and understanding. And that, I think, our relationships with each other here elevates us from the aspect of just expert to thought leader to pioneer. And especially if you talk to Edwin, you know, he really is pushing that, you know, aspect of being a pioneer and moving the needle forward in the science of knowledge management. So it's those relationships, I think, that help us, and, you know, and they push us, right? And so they push us to think through things and the questions that I asked. And so that allowed me to be able to contribute to Jay Leibowitz's book and other books as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and we can get more involved in questions and things like that.
Okay, well, thank you, Tony. Appreciate that presentation. I want to emphasize that knowledge needs to be addressed for a particular situation or need, and we're trying to understand how AI actually contributes to that. So I'm going to kind of go with the twofold right now. And the first thing I want to say is, being in the field, what were some challenges that you found that were surrounding the delivery of KM in a consumable and modular type of way, so that it could be based off of the information found from AI and leveraged in a knowledge perspective?
Well, I think, one of the challenges is all centered around information architecture. I don't know how familiar you guys or how deep a dive you went on the information architecture, but information architecture includes understanding the structure of content, the relationships between content, building taxonomies, and understanding how to look for or identify content, and the ontologies of the underlying understanding of how different content and data actually relate. And so one of the challenges I've had is individuals, part of the project teams, that may not understand the value of information architecture, or understand the value of that knowledge management methods lens on a particular project. And so sometimes you're educating, and then you're also trying to convince and really direct to have people understand what that brings to the table. One of the projects that I've worked on really had a need for a ontology to be built that would be leveraged by a tool such as a pool party or some other semantic search engine. However, the expertise to develop an ontology was actually there, but people didn't realize that a KM person actually has that type of understanding of relationships of content and data. And so we put together a team with KMers and brought in an outside person that I actually knew. It was one of my colleagues, that understood ontology. So together we were able to build a map out an ontology and then put that ontology in the tool. So at the end of the day, where it was challenges for people that didn't understand information architecture and the value that brought, ended up being, okay, yeah, we need you guys to actually do this and to make this project successful. So those are challenges that I've seen in a couple of projects, and just understanding, we talked about this earlier, understanding the different disciplines and skill sets we need to make the project successful, not only from a knowledge delivery, but this also contribute to the algorithms being able to leverage that data in this training. I can give you another example. Worked with a Fortune 400 company, and they brought in IBM Watson to do a pilot. And IBM was mentioning that, okay, yeah, this would be great. Understand your domain, your corpus of data, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now do you have data that we can use? And so they said, what kind of data do you need? And so they said, we need data that's been curated, that's been cleansed, that has the proper structures and so on. And they said, well, I don't know if we have that type of data available. But IBM said, well, yeah, we can bring in people to help you do that and put that together. But then someone on the project team said, well, wait a minute, I think Tony's team, he's working with information architecture. I think they may be able to help us. And lo and behold, we brought the information architecture folks in, the KM folks in, and say, hey, this is we're talking about unstructured data, which is content, documents, PDFs, graphics, and putting structure around that content in the form of metadata, and understanding how that works. And then how you tie these together, how do they relate? What's the context of these particular pieces of unstructured data? And so that brought that understanding to the table with the IBM Watson team. And so they said, well, yes, this is exactly what we need. This is great. Let's start our pilot with this data. And so we actually saved the company a lot of time and money by being able to do one thing from a KM perspective on one side of the house and be able to leverage it for AI on the other side of the house. And that was an eye opener for a lot of people. And I've been, it's sometimes you can show people better than you can tell. You can talk all the time, but when you actually show and demonstrate, this is what I'm saying, this is how it works, then the light bulb goes off, right? This is it, this is right. So that's just two examples of clients I've worked with where the KM lens on something really, in particular AI applications really made the difference.
But you know what, given those challenges, and seems like it always comes in after the fact or as happenstance, someone realizes it. Given these challenges, what would you say, or how did you leverage those for your next success so that you got in early?
That's a good question. And it goes back to putting that diverse team together. And so if in a consulting practice, you're fortunate to be able to get in at the beginning. A lot of times organizations will call you in and say, well, we have a problem. And it's like, you've already started and it's like, okay, they've reached a point where, okay, but this is not working. And then you call the consultant in. I've been fortunate in a few opportunities to come in at the beginning. So in the beginning is that team building and understanding, okay, what skill sets do I need? What disciplines do I need? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to reach an outcome. You do things with the future in mind. What's the outcome that I'm looking for? What skill sets do I need to get me to that outcome? Okay, how am I going to deliver? What skill set do I need to understand agile development? I knew years ago there was an article on a whole slew of information on agile knowledge management. You guys probably familiar with that. And so that agility or agile mindset is key in delivering projects. And that agile mindset is all about capturing knowledge for the next iteration. What lessons learned? What did you have to bring into the next iteration of the project? And so all those disciplines from understanding agile to understanding how knowledge works, how knowledge is structured, understanding algorithms, understanding the business, those are diverse teams and able to come together at the beginning. So if you can do that at the beginning, so those were lessons learned from other projects that I had. If I had a chance to come in at the beginning, this is what I would do. And it works really well once you get that buy-in, right? Because people say, well, I don't know if we really need these types of people, but that is the key, I think, at the beginning of any project.
Okay, which is great because it leads into part of the next question, kind of like the buy-in. Early on, you said when we get on these projects, one of the challenges too is that we have to educate and coach and advise people as we're going along, which is additional work to just moving the project forward. If you have to do that much with the team, then does that overlay or does that go into the executive and the stakeholder as well?
Yes,
And yeah.
absolutely. So I've been fortunate. So when I do work with organizations, I'm coming from a more of a senior leadership level. They would bring me in. So a lot of times I would work with the senior leadership first, right? To see where they are, get their buy-in, get their understanding, and then they are like, it's one thing as a consultant coming in and saying, hey, we need to do this, 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 and this. It's another thing having the leadership come in and say, we're going to do this, this, and this, and Tony's going to lead you. So it's that buy-in I try to get at the beginning. That's usually where I come in to these projects. So it's senior leadership buy-in is essential for this to work properly.
Do you think that one of the lessons learned for these organizations that are leveraging AI for knowledge, that perhaps prior to starting an initiative, we need to educate our executives and stakeholders?
Absolutely. A couple of organizations I worked with understood that, and they did pilot projects. That's why you do pilot projects or proof of concepts, right? So to say, hey, how do we test this out? Get our people thinking a certain way, get our leadership thinking a certain way, understanding how delivery is going to happen a certain way, and to get that understanding. Since this is really my passion, and there's a lot of passionate folks on this call here, on taking this class, and as passionate people in KM, we do things extra, right? We would coach, we would start early, stay late, to make sure that people are on the same page, that people are understanding, okay, the goal, what we're trying to do, the benefits of this, and show how this would really work. And the proof of concepts and the pilot projects are invaluable for that. You can prove out certain things without breaking the bank, and then you can evolve. I like to do called an evolutionary prototype or proof of concept, so you can build on it, so you won't be throwaways, and try to build on that. And so taking that approach is I think is the way to go.
Excellent. I'm going to introduce a couple of questions from the attendees now. The first one from Lene: what are a few factors to consider when identifying, selecting business use cases that can benefit from AI-infused KM solutions?
Anytime you are looking to, if the use case is looking to deliver knowledge through for a vast amount of people, and each person, each area has a different need, for that knowledge. And so that is a real good use case to understand, okay, one, I need this disparate knowledge base to bring it together. And two, I need to personalize that knowledge for the people that are using it. Then if the business use case is talking about having people evolve and get better at what they do, that tells me that if you're going to use AI for this, or have an AI component, it should be something that's first of all underneath the covers, that is constantly understanding user interactions, user needs, user wants, and be able to serve up that content in a certain way. I did a presentation a couple of years ago, I guess the last time I did something in person, in 2019, did a presentation at the KMI showcase called Knowledge as a Service. And so knowledge as a service was really implemented through this project for the digital workplace. It was part of a digital transformation effort. So that is a key use case for AI infused KM. Anytime you hear, I want to do digital transformation. Okay, now digital transformation could be this huge thing, but how are you going to deliver digital transformation? One of the things is, one paradigm is knowledge as a service. Pulling up knowledge when you need it, where you need it, how you need it, in a predictive way that will be precise and answering your questions and delivering to your customers, and being able to collaborate and bring in other viewpoints to then hone in on the particular knowledge that you need. So that, now I'm talking not only about tangible knowledge, documents and things like that, but also connecting to the people who understand that knowledge. And so we're talking about knowledge maps, knowledge graphs, things of that nature. That's the manifestation of that use case, and that involves KM and AI. Anytime you hear digital transformation, and you want to, that's a great use case for KM and AI. Layer on that the ability to produce knowledge graphs and our knowledge maps to actually understand who is key knowledge holders. So those are I think buzzwords that just light up and say, okay, yeah, I think this is perfect for that. So those are the type of things I look for as far as the use cases.
Okay, here's another question. Would you say it's easier to build AI into a legacy system or start fresh and then grandfather in content when your system's built?
Oh my God, what a question. What's cool about the legacy stuff is you have data, right? But you have to discern what data is valuable moving forward versus historical. If you want to do some historical analysis, yeah, you want to keep hold of that. And I hate to give the answer, it depends, but with legacy systems, you have all that technical debt, but you're trying to leverage it as best you can, and the best part is the historical data. Greenfield, new, that's the fun stuff, right? So, but you still need data for the AI piece to really work as intended. So the legacy stuff is critical for some data, more data to be available, and historical analysis if you want to do that. But the more starting from scratch greenfield stuff is, you don't have some of the issues that you have to contend with. So at some point, sometimes it's better to start there. However, my advice is always to leverage your existing technology the best you can, and to understand one thing, that data is the new currency. So if you have legacy systems, leverage the legacy data to the best of your ability, based on what you want your AI applications to deliver on the back end. Is this data, and what of this data is necessary? Because that data is going to be curated. What I mean by curated, structured and cleansed, in order for that algorithm to work. And there'll be not more work on the front end to get that data together than you have a greenfield new application. But with the new application, you're still hunting for data. So
Okay, I'm gonna go with one more user and then I'm gonna go back to the interview for a second and hopefully we'll get the next in. Is it possible to implement KM related AI initiatives when IT and information management areas in the organization is not ready?
The answer is yes. However, I laugh because if they're not ready, your leadership is going to bring in, and this is where my job comes in. It'll bring in a consulting company. He'll bring in. That's why you have your leadership bring in, the big dogs like a Accenture or Deloitte, or somebody like a Wipro or companies like that, because they can bring in those people and then that expertise and build that solution for you and kind of shepherd your people along, right? You always infuse your the client's personnel into the overall consultant team project to do that knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer. That's a knowledge management thing, isn't it? Knowledge transfer, so they could be able to take the system and evolve it over time. But yes, I mean, it happens all the time. You can, even though if IT and folks are not ready, you bring in that expertise, that company that can then deliver that solution and educate and knowledge transfer your people to then go forward. You can get them ready, but get them ready at the with adding value of delivering something that the company really needs and leadership really wants. So that's why I kind of chuckle, because yes, and that's where I usually come in at. So
okay, let me jump back to a question, because we've been saying, and you came out and you said data is the new currency, okay, which I firmly believe. But it's interesting. There's still organizations that move forward without having that currency clean, so to speak.
yeah,
You got like Watson that went out and $6 million later is kind of tabled because they didn't have the electronic record system updated, so the data wasn't good. And then you also got with OPM Einstein that went out, and $6 billion later, they're still trying to get the basic elements that actually identify intrusion into their networks. So how do you think we get ahead of, instead of behind, this curation of data for AI and machine learning applications, so that we know we're pushing forward clean and good and quality data?
Well, you kind of hit it. I mean, it's no way around it. If it's that garbage in, garbage out thing, right? If you beware and be mindful of organizations that promise AI solutions and do not have a method or a way of cleansing and curating data. Don't bring them in for that. Don't even hire them, because they will promise you certain things and the application will never work. There's many, like Andy's mentions, many instances of that. So IBM actually has a platform to help do content curation. Now, years ago, they didn't have it. This is the last couple of years. I think this is not Watson Discovery or Watson Discovery platform that has a data creation capability. So organizations are realizing that. And of course, firms will definitely offer their expertise to cleanse the data for you at a certain monetary value. So you also be looking into that as well. So
yeah. And the other thing is not only the clean data, but the trustworthy data. And I'm going to go back over to a question. What type of training should be included when considering AI ethics for AI-infused KM solution?
Now, what my position on that is, there first of all, you start with some standards and policies. There's a few standards and AI standards and policies that include ethical AI and responsible AI methods. And so OECD is one of them. Now, don't ask me to say what OECD is. I forgot top of my head, but that's a consortium of countries, including the U.S., who've contributed to this AI standard. And there's a few other AI standards that actually have some have guidelines on how to incorporate responsible and ethical AI. There is no silver bullet, but there is a process to follow. There is again, I keep talking about diverse teams and the diverse look, cultural and experience together, because what you think and it has also to do with the data that you select for the algorithm. Not only cleansing the data, but what data are you going to select? Some data is biased by nature. It's because it's perpetuated. It's based on race or religion or whatever. It's biased in that way. We come to the table with biases, and so it's biased in the developer. It's biased in the person, the team that's modeling the algorithm. There's bias everywhere. So there's the diverse team and having that consistent review of your data and algorithm, even after it's built, right? To continue to monitor that, to make sure there's no unintended circumstances. One of the key elements in making sure ethical and responsible AI is implemented is having the capability to understand the path the algorithms take to make a decision. And so as KMers, we understand how knowledge flows. We understand the path that something should take to make a decision. We understand what data should be leveraged in order to contribute to make that decision and what that data should look like. So we have to have algorithms that we are able to trace through and say, okay, why or how did you come to that decision? And to see what data did you use and what things do we need to, modify and make sure that we remove that bias from that decision-making process. And it's constant. It's a constant monitoring of the results. Okay. It's no silver bullet. It's just a concerted effort and the process you have to follow. It takes discipline to follow a process, and this is no exception.
Yeah. I have one. I'm not certain it's a question, but it's personal AI versus organizational AI. I want you to just take in quickly. What's the delta between those two?
Well, that's a huge delta, right? So the deal is this: so that the organization has goals as a whole, big picture, what you need to do, and then individually, hopefully you're aligned to those goals and objectives, and then from the personal perspective, able to meet those. But if you separate personal for what you do outside the corporate walls in your own personal life versus what you do in corporate inside the company, those are two different things. And so you have personal things that you need, and quite frankly, you're relying on organizations like Google and others, Amazon, that you interact with to have your back, to have that lens on your data privacy, your things that your credit card information, and being able to trust that you're finding the right information on the site. So there's some homework that we all have to do to make sure, from a personal perspective, that we getting what we need from interacting with these products, understanding what the AI is doing for you, and like I said earlier, with the Series and the and Alexas and things like that, and understanding those tools and how we use them. So it's when we do personal, I apologize, it's a long-winded answer, but when we do the personal things, we really have to take it upon ourselves to do our homework and understand what of these we want to use. I know some people that refuse to have a personal assistant at their home. They don't want those things because they're like, okay, I can't trust that thing. It may do something I don't like. So it's stuff like that. I know some folks won't put their credit card in the ordering online. Even with the pandemic, people just start flooding with ordering everything. People boxes come to your house like left and right. You're using your credit card. I know some people that refuse. I'm not doing that. So it's it's with things that we have to kind of figure out what we want to do at the end.
Now this one, and then I think we have maybe one more. Let's see if we can get through this one. But this question, I think everybody is looking for. I am still looking for a layman's narrative on AI and KM in the form of a book in simple journalistic writing, reader-friendly, not writer-friendly one. Who can help? And to follow that, someone says also, I have the same question as Bismarck, some best examples of how AI and KM was implemented, steps, guidance, and best practices, which could definitely help in those cases we use. So how do we get this in a simplistic form for those to follow?
Oh, okay. Plug in my own stuff. I just want to give you guys an unbiased opinion. On my book, Knowledge Management and Practice, I was told that by other reviewers that the book is quote unquote encyclopedic, that it really gets down to the nuts and bolts and the how-tos. So, if you want, and I've heard it was, I try to make it easier to read and understand. And so that book will help you. There's KM for Dummies. I mean, there's a book out, KM for Dummies, that really, which none of you all are. So that, kind of keeps it really, really simple. That's a good question. I would have to do, there's, I know Stan Garfield has put together a lot of material. Art has put together a lot of material that really keeps it simple. I did I think you might find this interesting. I did a webinar for AI for executives and board members, and that really broke down AI very simple. And I can send that information. I mean, there you don't necessarily need a book to break down AI and KM in a more layman and simple terms. There are articles out there that address that too. But that, that's a great question, and quite frankly, that is a challenge to find. But
yeah, as a last thought, I think that, and on that question, and I've been saying this kind of for years, even with KM and AI, there are no standard and consistent methodologies that exist that someone can pull up and actually pull from and tailor like they have with project management, systems engineering, product engineering. All of those methodologies exist, but we've been so busy defining KM and defining AI that we have never gotten to the point where we have come up with a generic methodology that allows you to tailor for your organization. So any last words on that, Tony?
I
have a question before you just wrap up.
Go ahead.
Before we started, you asked me, how do we convince organizations to open the door for the KMers to join the AI projects? Now, the easy answer is build a team and let the KMer join. But that's not the case. So I'm returning the question to you and asking, what are your tips? How can we open the door for the KMers on the AI projects? Because the organizations do not really know that we are there and that we can give the added value.
Well, I position it, like I said earlier, like this. I said, AI is about knowledge. And who is best to be on the team and someone with the understanding of how knowledge works and how knowledge is structured. And so I always approach it with the synergistic view of KM and AI. and how KM will actually, and you have to appease to the bottom line. So I always structure it in a way that say the KM knowledge will allow for success of the AI project or implementation to occur. If you don't have that lens, then that will limit the possibility for success of the initiative. And for me, I'm fortunate to come in at a senior level in the organization where they would, kind of say, okay, Tony, we'll take that into consideration, or we'll consider that. But, like we said earlier, it's better to show than you can tell. But I actually will put together a briefing that actually show that. But it's that if you can convince from a senior leadership level, like you're saying, to talk about the synergistic nature between knowledge management and AI, how KM is essential for the success of AI, then because the executives are still also learning, the senior leadership is still also learning about AI and the possibilities, and I can just, in our conversation, point to other things that I've done that relate to that, have that lens and convince them on that bottom line perspective. It's helped me in the past do that. It's a challenge to get to that point to be able to do that, but you have to have advocates that will be more open to doing that. It's a hard question. Absolutely a challenge in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what's interesting, and I was sitting listening to Moria and then to you about this, and we think about the KM roles and the different roles and responsibilities. But it's interesting, the KMer is now being displaced the same way that the librarian was when KM came on the market, because we didn't take advantage of the skills of the librarian when it came to ontologies and taxonomies and different things like that. And now AI is here, and we're displacing the KMer because we're not taking advantage of the skills and the abilities that they have in order to, like you said, Tony, make AI successful as well. So it's kind of interesting, the dynamics of how we're evolving here.
Yeah, but it's short-sighted, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You need people with library skills too.
Absolutely.
So it's not understanding the nature of what AI you need to use and how you're going to implement it. Mm-hmm. And that's the key, mm-hmm. is being able to articulate and communicate that. Because when you start to displace that knowledge, displace that whole discipline, you've seen the failures on the back end with the AI applications implementation, because you don't have that lens to contribute to the development.
Okay.
And we talked about frameworks before, mm-hmm. and the one thing that I think one of my I guess superpowers I can bring to the table is I can extrapolate anything. Mm-hmm. So I can take a method, I can take a process, and I can modify it for that company. But the best skill KMers can have is the skill to listen. Mm-hmm. And if you listen and understand what the customer is asking you or what the situation is, you can adopt a method, because you can pull them out your hat, right? This can apply, but if I change this, and this will work. Because you never starting from scratch, right? You never starting from scratch. And so you take that knowledge and you adapt it based on what you're understanding the problem to be, and do some root cause analysis and say, okay, this is really the root of your problem. This is how we want to address it. And 9 times out of 10, you can see that works. And we have the uncanny ability to adjust. So we can adjust. And I always say a good coach is somebody that can adjust not only per quarter or per half, but per play. And so we take that same mindset, we can adjust and see what, how things really work. We can adopt frameworks to accomplish our goals and objectives.
Excellent. I think that's a great ending to end on. I'm going to open it up if anybody want to chime in and ask a question. We're at the top of the hour now, And this has been a great interview. Well, thank you, Tony, and we have gained quite a bit of knowledge from you. Moria?
I appreciate participating. This is my passion. So, and you know, you guys want any of the stuff I talked about, any of the presentations and things I talked about, articles, anything like that, you know, let Annie or Moria know, and I can send it to the group, send it to one of them, and they'll send it to the group. So
also at the back of your presentation, you had your sites as well. Are they also there?
Yeah. Another thing, my blog, Knowledge Management, the Knowledge Management Depot, which I think I started in 2006 or 2008. I got about 144 articles on there for various things. And, you know, if you want to find something that really gets to the heart of some of the things I've talked about and some things in KM, go on that blog and check some things out. It's readily available there too. Again, you know, we got a lot of people on this in this class that has articles they've written and books that I would highly recommend people seek those out as well.
I wish to end quoting you some of the things people wrote on the chat. Fantastic, thanks. Thanks for the great session. Very valuable discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you for the great presentation. Thank you. Very insightful presentation. Great session. Thank you. Thanks again. Great inputs, etc., etc., etc. So what can I say? Thank you. We learned a lot, a great deal, and we hope that we can all implement the synergy of KM and AI and make a better world with more knowledge, with more prosperity due to our knowledge and our understandings.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Enjoy this. And I tend to be long-winded, so, you know.
Yeah, I just
No,
wanted
you're
to,
fine.
I just wanted to say I posted in the chat a link and definition, and it's something to consider is how states and governments are going to regulate artificial intelligence. So this link that I put in here is basically what's going on state by state in the U.S.
Oh,
Wow.
Thank you.
See, I told you that Edwin, man, I'm telling you, he has a wealth of stuff.
I know. Catch up with him. He has all of this stuff for you.
And he's natural intelligence, nothing artificial about him.
I know, I mean, that's the amazing part of that.
We can never know. We can never know.
Oh.
Okay, so thank you, and good day, and we'll meet you again next week. Please prepare. Art will be speaking with us about the challenges, the risks, and how can we handle them. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.